Morning all, it's 07:30 on Friday, the 17th of October, and it is time for me to have a go at sorting out the Probat. I think what I'm going to do today, because I'm limited on time, I've got maybe an hour or two, I've got to squeeze these things into a fairly busy working schedule. So I've got a couple of hours before I've got other things to do. So I thought I'm going to strip some things off the Probat, I'm going to clear out this area and walk through some of the components that I think I'm going to have to fix up. Actually, before I get going on what we're going to do on the Probat today, I need to clear one thing up about, see that? The fire exit. Let me show you. This here is your view, but what you don't see is the walkway right the way to the fire exit. I'm not that daft. Right, with that cleared up, let's get some space sorted. And a little tidy up as well. See this here? This was from the original crate that shipped the Probat with. And actually, it housed the Cyclone. This is, what, like 12 years old. And I used this to, well, I used to put this here and then lift the green coffee in, and now I've got a loader on the Loring, which is great. Anyway, let's move this out of the way. Okay, one cleared space. Should we do a little bit of a tour? So here is the Probat. That's where you put your green coffee, right up there. This is the horizontally aligned roasting drum, cooling tray, Cyclone, driven by this fan motor. I know that I need to replace that. Well, maybe replace it, but I definitely do not want to turn that on. This is the vent for the hot stack. We call this the hot stack. There's the hot flue. All of that needs to be disassembled and cleared. Then we have the faceplate. This here, this is cast iron versus stainless steel in the Loring. Next, what do we have? Agitator, as I said, the cooling tray. This all needs a really good rub and clean. This is very difficult to get off. We've got an access point in here, and all of under this will need cleaning and getting rid of. Things like the trio, haven't used that in a long while. Front bearing, I need to sort that out. You can see where the sight glass has got, well, just basically baked on coffee oils. So that needs a big clean, or maybe even replacing. Should we have a look inside of the drum? Can you see anything in there? Maybe, I don't know. We'll have a look. This will come off. We'll take this off. I'll probably need to renew the probes as well. So this is what I was using as a retrofitted bean probe. This here is Probat's standard bean probe. We've got a probe on the return, and actually we've then got a probe located in here. I'll come to that in a second. So that's the front. This will come off, we'll clean that. This is the Probatone Series 2, Probatone P12 Series 2. This is the control panel that we have. There's up and down in gas percentages versus the very modern Loring. Completely different bits of kit. And of course, the Probat has newer versions of this out now, but this is what you get. Now, behind we have, this is the cold stack here. I don't think I've ever taken that apart, so that needs to go. I guarantee there's going to be a whole bunch of water in here. And then back panel, should we get that off? It's a bit of a tight squeeze behind here, but with loads of cobwebs. Let's get this back panel off and see what's inside. Ooh, more cobwebs. Okay, so this is a tour of the inside of the rear of the Probat. This here is the rear plate of the roasting drum. This is the main drive motor, and I've had so many problems with this. Not because of the brand or the motor per se, excuse the cobwebs, more that this motor is asked to drive that drum straight from the start, which puts such a huge risk and pressure and torque on the motor and this particular part. So there is a baking tray in here that I used to collect oil that would drip out, and it would be a way for me to, well, protect oil from inside of the actual roaster. I'll show you a leak that I once had. Gas pressure. This here is the exhaust fan. The hot stack goes into the hot stack over here. So this needs to be replaced. I know a UK company that does this brand, Lenzer, a German company. They were ridiculously expensive through Probat, but actually much better through the UK company. So that needs to be replaced. We'll probably have to clean all of this pipe work out as well. This is where I attach my little air pressure reader. And that's how I set through this here. That's how I set the under pressure. Gosh, look at all those cobwebs. Poor Probat. For those of you who are interested, this was made in 2014. I recently in a comment said 2012. So that information was somewhat incorrect. It's 2014 this was made, which means, well, it's 11 years old, and I've not turned it on for 16 months, 17 months. What a poor thing. What a beautiful machine this was. Now, back to that leak. Now, some time ago, when I had the first motor failure, I didn't realize I had a motor failure until it was in the old unit, in unit 22. We're in unit 30 on a boulevard factory estate in Hull. Anyway, so I had a motor failure that I didn't know about until I saw a big pool of oil on the floor here. And what had happened is, well, oil had leaked into this electrical cabinet, which was a right bloody nightmare. Anyhow, so oil pulled there. There is still, I don't know whether you can see that, it's still greasy oil in the bottom of this, and many of these relays and contactors had got oil on them. So the stress, the absolute stress that was. Anyway, I cleaned it out, so it's much better now. It does smell sometimes, but I would like to try and clean that out properly. Because this is out of service, I've actually got time to spend on it. Well, I mean, not to say that I've got lots of time, but when I do have time, I can just say, well, I'm going to spend an hour trying to clean this and not worry about production. We had problems with these relays here, specifically the one for the cooling tray. Now, what I used to do, and I still do with the cooling tray, is I use it as an agitator to blend coffee. You shouldn't do that. You should get your own standalone blender. But I did, and many people around the world use the cooling tray as a blender, if you have blends, that is. And the risk with that is you put a lot of torque and pressure on these relays here. I don't know whether they're called relays, but we'll call them that. So correct me, if you're an electrician, correct me if they're not called relays. But anyway, one of these things used to fail quite often. They're fairly easy to replace, just a few screws. Useful to have those in store. So that is item number one that I'm going to make sure that A, I replace, and B, I have on my parts list or inventory. Whilst we're looking inside the Probat, why don't we look inside the real beefy part where the burner is? So you get these special keys and you use those to access these panels. Oh, the number of times I have opened this. Let's see what's inside. Oh, good golly. That, my friends, is the dusty inner workings of a Probat. Wow. Here's a closer look for those people who really want to know. Do excuse the enormous amounts of spider webs and whatnot. Let's go through it. So this here is the main burner, which is located underneath the drum. The drum is up there, underneath the drum, but isn't in contact with the drum. So imagine the flame here and the fan way up there is dragging the hot air that produces. Inside of here we have 2 electrodes which were a nightmare to replace. This is where the gas comes in. Where's the gas pipe? There's a gas pipe there. So gas and air mix in here into the combustion chamber. This here is a fan that is drawing cold air through the cooling tray there. So this needs to come off to check inside. This is the Dungs unit that regularly used to fail when the ignition switch didn't work. That happened regularly. And obviously these cobwebs needs to come out. If you don't like spiders, don't hang out on the inside of a Probat. Another thing I'll have to sort out is this cyclone. And what the cyclone does is it gathers chaff. Chaff is the silver skin that dehydrates through the roasting process and through centrifugal forces basically drops out through this funnel into, not too bad, into a receptacle here. I used to collect bags and bags of chaff in this thing, bags of the stuff. I used to send it to my mother and she used to put it in the garden anyway. That's gone now. Frustratingly, when this was delivered to me, this machine, the union between the chaff barrel or the chaff bin and this faceplate here, which has to be tight. You can't have a gap, otherwise there isn't a vacuum. I don't think it's a vacuum, but there isn't a proper seal produced. The whole thing doesn't work. Anyway, it didn't work, so I've got to get this like neoprene tape that is fire retardant, or you can withstand up to 200 or so degrees Celsius. Anyway, so I've got to replace that. And then I need to somehow clean the internals of all of this as well. Not that it's important for the roasted coffee, but it's just, you know, if you're going to do a proper job, do a proper job. Okay, I'm now up a ladder, having a look at the motor. So this is the main motor for the radial fan. Inside of here there is a fan assembly. I guarantee that many of these are loose. I mean, obviously there you go, that's loose there. It shouldn't be loose. It's because I've used to take this off so regularly. Oh look, there's a roastery, looking pretty tidy for a Friday. So this definitely needs to be replaced. There was a horrible noise that was produced for this where there was some shaft wobble. I have a new one of these and I spent £1,800 some years ago in buying a spare one of those. So rather than trying to fix this up and clean this out, I'm just going to put a new one on, and I might send this off to be renewed. There's the top of the Probat. Look how dusty it is. There's the gas lines. These gas lines here, we got put in when we got the Loring installed. You can see the tee off on those gas lines there, just there. And that goes out the front of the roastery. Well, I think that's a good enough start. Good enough start on, well, at least an overview of what I'm looking at and some of the bits that I may have to replace inside of the refurb of this roaster. What I want to do next is, well, give it a bit of a clean so it feels a bit more loved, and then start taking some parts off. But unfortunately, I've run out of time today. I've got a lot of other things to do, and I've got an appointment at, well, I've got to leave the roastery at 1 o'clock today. And like I said, a load of things to do. And of course, I've got to try and edit this video. So I think in the next phase, now you've had an overview, I will choose one part of the system to then disassemble and purchase some other bits. I may start with buying the motor because I've got to get the motor. And I may also, just for giggles, put the new radial fan on. Because at that point, what we could do is try and start the thing up. I mean, maybe I'd have to sort the bearings out. I think the bearings might be okay, but wouldn't it be good if I could just get it on and see if I could fire it up? So maybe that's the next task. I'll book in some time in the following week, maybe next Friday, and I'll see if I can do those things. I hope this has been interesting. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comments below. This could be an interesting project for people to follow along with. Let me know. Cheers.